With me now is Forward Party co-chair Andrew Yang. He's a former Democratic presidential candidate and the author of Forward. Andrew, I bet you love that intro. You know, you used to be one of these guys. Explain them now with all of that language and inappropriate behavior.
Hey, I haven't been a Democrat for several years now, Will, and you were right in that intro. I don't think politics as usual is working to solve the problems that a lot of Americans are animated by. I'm someone who does not think vandalism or property destruction does your cause any favors. If anything, it drives people to the opposite point of view.
But can we together, Andrew, I mean, look, I appreciate that you haven't been a Democrat for some time. I think it's actually worthy of analysis of why this is happening. On one hand, you have sitting congressmen and senators cursing. It seems to me a pretty unnatural attempt to be authentic. They looked at Donald Trump. They think he's unfiltered. Their answer to that is to try to be unfiltered. And it comes off so crass and manufactured. And then as far as the violence and the profanity and the vandalism, I think that this is just an audience of people that have been conditioned at some point to see their political enemies as existential threats. And so what's left to do but get crazy, get violent?
Well, we know what actually should happen, Will, and that's to win elections, win races, win power. The problem is that elections aren't until November of 26, so what to do between now and then. I will say that I've been known to swear on the trail. I agree with you that sometimes it seems performative, sometimes it seems authentic, and I do believe that for some Democrats, they're trying it on for the first time, and it may not be the right fit.
You know, and I want to acknowledge, look, Donald Trump is cursed, right? Like I said, I'm not approved. We've seen Republicans do this. So it's not, you know, there's a level of self-awareness that needs to be involved in this as well. But it feels here as though it is the substance of the argument. It's not a moment of authenticity. It's like your argument has become, you know, F Trump. That's what literally their response is. And I don't really see much of a deeper argument beyond that. There's no substance.
It's one reason why Trump has won not once but twice, in my opinion, that the Democratic Party fell into this oppositional position. And what they should have been doing is solving the root problems that many Americans are upset about, which is that if you have children, that you're concerned that they're going to live a better life than you did, that a lot of people are seeing their community go down the wrong track, that things are becoming less affordable. Democrats need to be focused on those kind of kitchen sink issues, and their failure to achieve on those dimensions, in my view, is one of the main things that has led to this position with Donald Trump back in the White House. Your viewers probably know, I mean, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm someone who thinks there should be a third option, a third way in American life, because 50% of Americans now classify ourselves as independents and may not feel ourselves to be represented by one party or the other.
You ever look back, though, Andrew, and say, wow, there's a complete vacuum of leadership within the Democrat Party? That could have been my opening?
Oh, well, I get a version of that just about every day. And you know, I look at it and I say, that's not my job. My job now is to build an alternative, a positive, independent alternative that leads the country not left or right, but forward. But I will say that there is such a leadership void and vacuum that people are beseeching various figures, including me, just about every day saying, please do something. And that is something that, in my view, the Democratic Party needs to sort out. I wish that some of the folks who, you know, are waiting in the wings to run for 2028 get a move on, because then at least you could have a little bit more of a constructive conversation.
Yeah, you'd have somebody define. I think your analysis, by the way, of the left is accurate, that they defined themselves, the identity became anti-Donald Trump. And that was the only North Star, the only guiding light. And so whatever rhetoric they chose or even policy they chose to oppose, it only mattered which side was Donald Trump on. That's it. Two words mattered for the Democratic Party: Donald Trump.
Yeah, and because of that, he dominated the conversation. He dominated the discourse about policy, and that's not where Democrats should have been. I mean, when I ran for office myself in 2020, I had a whole litany of policies that were trying to make America more affordable and livable, and I think that's where most Americans want us to go.
All right, Andrew Yang, great conversation. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, Will. Congrats on the show.
Thank you so much. Take care.